Hey, English 232. Real quick video for you guys in regard to discussion forums. So I wanted to record this a while ago. Things have just been crazy. I've been running all over the place, but I have notes and I wanted to talk a little bit about the Realism discussion forum and some general rules and expectations when it comes to discussion forums. So this is a super important video for you guys because discussion forums are a large portion of your grade overall. Couple of notes to begin with. First of all, this is a upper level English course. We use MLA format, and it is my expectation that you are citing quotations and you are citing works in MLA format using parenthetical citations in proper MLA format. So do make sure that you are doing that in your discussion forums. So a couple of things to talk about. You are required to use references. Now, what I don't require is the full citation in the forum. Those of you who are doing that, if you want to keep doing it, great, continue, but you do not have to. But you do need to do a citation for the work that you are using, especially when you're using a quotation. So make sure that you're doing that. If you're looking at a poem, it's really important to make a note of which line it's coming from so that people can go back and reference that. So make sure that you're using your citations, make sure you're doing them correctly. And if you ever need to review anything for formatting, use Purdue OWL. And that will help you out with everything MLA, okay? Okay, into our actual realism discussion, some things I wanted to point out. First of all, this is a general rule when writing about people of color. We don't say blacks and whites, okay? We say black people and white people, and that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. I'm not a white, I'm a person. So if you use white to describe me, you can call me a white person, but you wouldn't call me a white, and I wouldn't call someone else a black. I would call them a black person or an African American. So make sure we do that. We're talking about people here, so that's kind of a really important thing to remember. It's a weird paradigm shift, but when you make that paradigm shift, you are actively addressing people as human beings and people. So it's a really good one to make overall. Okay, so a couple things I wanted to talk about. Hopefully I remember my notes because I started writing them last week. Michaela, when she was replying to Avery, talked about the idea of double consciousness from W.E.B. Du Bois. And he kind of coined this idea and this thought of like double consciousness and like the struggle of, am I African? Am I American? What does it mean? What does that duality mean? And that's really important. And you kind of see that struggle in what he wrote. That is not present in Walt Whitman because he didn't have that, that struggle. He didn't have that kind of dual personality. But African Americans then and even now, there's a whole world of that white people we don't understand because we haven't had those experiences. And it's important to remember that there's nothing wrong with the fact that we haven't had those experiences. We just haven't. But being aware of it is really important, okay? Because it's not someone's experience. Doesn't not happen just because we didn't experience that. And that's really important for us to remember when we're reading literature from different perspectives, to be open to what that particular author experiences. In your forums, an author biography and background is really not needed unless you're analyzing how that background is reflected in literature. And in order to do that, you don't have to give the whole background. You can just do the analysis about how that background is reflected in the literature. So these forums are to analyze literature, not to give a biography of the author. Those are provided. So make sure we're not just repeating that. That's not what I'm looking for from you. My expectation is you watch the bios and you understand the bios, but unless you're analyzing how their life experiences show up in the work, we're analyzing the literature, not their biography. So that's important. Arthur, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Arthur. If not, email me, tell me how to pronounce it. Said something about Du Bois addressing the white reader. And that's really important because just like I was talking about earlier, he's asking the white reader to open up enough to understand the Black experience. So understanding that that experience is different than their experiences, and being willing to accept that those differences sometimes have an impact and they don't not exist because we don't see it or haven't experienced it. Okay, so that was a really good point and really important. And then Michaela again, good job, in response to Arthur, I'm quoting you, Hughes is relating that American dream is postponed and no longer evident in America. Yeah, I mean, you could argue that he says that, but really he's asking just what does happen if you can't access that, okay? And then Lily said to Arthur that perhaps Whitman was unaware, and that's unlikely. I mean, I'm sure that he was aware that there was a struggle for the African American during that time, but even today we get into that idea of what is privilege, right? And privilege is not having to think about that struggle, okay? And that's something that we want to remember. Because it doesn't affect us personally, we don't need to know about it, and that's not necessarily the case, okay? Remember when we're writing our discussion forum responses, we are not evaluating other people's posts. So I don't need to see you write, great job, I liked this, unless you're gonna say, I liked what you said about this because, and then you add more to it, okay? But not just, I really liked how you did that, or I really liked what you said. That's not necessary, okay? We are, if you don't have anything substantial to say, pick a different post to reply to. One thing I want to make an idea, or make a kind of blanket statement, Langston Hughes's poem is not from the Realism period, and that is why you read Langston Hughes's poem in week 1. It's our anchor text. It's actually from the 1920s. It's from the Harlem Renaissance, which we will do in a couple weeks. But we are applying his poem to all of the eras. So just remember that Hughes didn't write his poem at the same time period as Whitman and Du Bois. Okay, he was after them. And he actually writes some poetry in response to Whitman, and we'll read that when we get to the Harlem Renaissance later. Please do me a favor, and if things are posting 2 or 3 times and you see that, please go back and if there's a way to get rid of multiple posts, do that, because I had some multiple posts, and then there was one person commented on it, and then one person commented on the same exact content but a different post, and then that gets kind of messy. You want one post. And then just remember, we're not passing judgment on each other's posts at all. And finally, just a quick note, Leaves of Grass was not a poem, it was a book of poems. So remember that, that's important too, because we would punctuate that differently, okay? So those are my quick little notes. I was fairly easy, I guess, on grading the forums this week, and I tried to give feedback where I could, and I was trying to do it in a way that wasn't mean, but also I wanted you to understand if you lost points, why, okay? So that's why I made some comments in the forum that are generalizations, because it wasn't just one person that had that issue, but I tried to tell you guys when issues popped up. So this week you guys have your Gatsby discussion forum, and so I just wanted to give you a quick video responding to some of the things you said, which were awesome, and also with some expectations, so you know for this week's forum what my expectations are. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and you enjoy finishing up Gatsby, and you have a really nice and fruitful discussion of that.